Australia, the land of two faces. Imagine a paradise of stunning beaches, where kangaroos bounce freely across the red sands of the outback, and a laid-back lifestyle bathed in sunshine all year round. Is this the Australia you picture? But wait, behind those postcard-perfect images lies a different reality, one that is rarely talked about. A country where the cost of living can be suffocating for entire families, where indigenous communities continue to face systemic injustices, and where immigrants seeking the Australian dream sometimes end up in remote detention centers. This is not the Australia you see on glossy travel brochures or Instagram feeds. Today, we're diving deep into a side of Australia that few people talk about. Get ready, because this journey will change the way you see this country forever. The dream versus the reality. Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide. When people think of Australia, they imagine modern cities filled with skyscrapers, efficient transport systems, and an enviable lifestyle. Iconic beaches, world-class coffee culture, and a melting pot of global cuisines. Everything paints the picture of a dreamland. Sydney captivates visitors with its legendary Opera House, dazzling harbour bridge, and bustling beaches packed with surfers. Melbourne, on the other hand, enchants with its colorful graffiti-filled streets, cozy cafes, and an intense passion for sports, from Aussie rules football to Formula One. Brisbane, with its year-round warm climate, is a haven for those seeking a quieter life without sacrificing modern comforts. Meanwhile, Perth and Adelaide strike a balance between urban charm and untamed nature, where you can work all day and unwind on the beach by sunset. But hold on, is that all there is to Australia? Scrolling through social media or flipping through travel guides, it's easy to get swept away by this picture-perfect dream. But what's the reality behind the scenes? The cost of living, a nightmare for many. The truth is, Australia is far more expensive than most people expect. According to recent reports, Sydney and Melbourne rank among the most expensive cities in the world. A simple meal can set you back tens of dollars. Rent prices are through the roof, and even basic necessities come at a high cost. For many residents, especially international students and migrant workers, making ends meet in Australia is no easy task. The forgotten story of Indigenous Australians. Did you know that Australia is home to one of the world's oldest living cultures? Indigenous Australians have inhabited this land for over 60,000 years, with rich traditions, deep spiritual beliefs, and an unbreakable connection to nature. But everything changed when Europeans arrived in the 18th century. In 1770, Captain James Cook claimed Australia for the British Empire. Within decades, it became a penal colony, where thousands of convicts were shipped over to settle the land. But who suffered the most in this process? The indigenous communities. Before colonization, the indigenous population was estimated to be around 1 million. But war, disease, and forced assimilation policies drastically reduced their numbers. Today, they make up less than 1% of Australia's population and continue to face immense challenges, from poverty and unemployment to discrimination and cultural erasure. A developed nation full of controversies. Throughout the 20th century, Australia industrialized and became an economic powerhouse, largely thanks to its vast natural resources. Coal, minerals, and gas fueled the nation's wealth, making cities like Perth boom with impressive growth. After World War II, Australia opened its doors to European migrants, and over the decades, people from all over the world came seeking new opportunities. This transformed Australia into the diverse, multicultural country it is today. But prosperity hasn't been shared equally. Australia's strict immigration policies have led to the detention of asylum seekers in offshore processing centers on remote islands, a controversial issue that continues to spark global criticism. The big question: Australia, a country of breathtaking landscapes, vibrant cities, and a rich multicultural fabric. But behind the dazzling exterior lies a different reality, one where inequality persists, where indigenous people and immigrants still struggle to find their place. So, is Australia truly the promised land that many believe it to be? What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more eye-opening stories like this one. Can you believe that in a developed country like Australia, hundreds of thousands of people cannot afford rent and even have to sleep on the streets? It may sound unbelievable, but this is the harsh reality of a country often seen as a paradise. If you haven't watched the first part yet, go back and explore the hidden sides of Australia, from the forgotten indigenous communities to the controversial immigration policies. But now, get ready, because we're diving deeper into another shocking truth: economic inequality and the nightmare of the cost of living. Globe showing Asia-Australia prosperity, but not for everyone. When people think of Australia's major cities, they often imagine clean streets, stunning skyscrapers, and a wealthy society. But is this wealth really shared equally? Despite having one of the highest GDPs in the world, the gap between the rich and the poor in Australia is widening. Statistics show that 1 in 10 Australians live below the poverty line, and ironically, even those with full-time jobs are struggling to make ends meet. Crossmark some suburban areas in Sydney and Melbourne, such as Mount Druitt, Blacktown, Fairfield, Broadmeadows, Dandenong, and Sunshine, suffer from high unemployment rates, poor infrastructure, and living conditions far from what you'd expect in a developed country. Crossmark in remote regions like the Northern Territory and outback areas, access to basic healthcare and quality education remains a daily challenge. So, if you think Australia is a paradise where anyone can get rich, think again. Money bag cost of living. A homeowner's dream or a renter's nightmare. If there's one thing that keeps Australians up at night, it's the cost of living, especially housing. House with garden. Can you guess the average price of a house in Sydney? Not a few $100,000, but over $1 million. And we're not talking about luxurious beachfront villas, just regular old houses that have skyrocketed in value over the years, making homeownership a distant dream for many young people. So, if buying is out of reach, what about renting? Well, that's no easier. Money with Wings renting a one-bedroom apartment in central Sydney or Melbourne can cost over 4,000 Australian dollars per month. Face with monocle, but isn't the salary in Australia high? Yes, the minimum wage is around 23 Australian dollars per hour, totaling about 3,000 Australian dollars per month. But after paying rent, utilities, food, transport, and insurance, there's barely anything left. This is why more and more Australians are struggling to survive, and some are even left without a place to live. Derelict house homelessness crisis, the dark side of a wealthy nation. Would you believe that in Sydney and Melbourne, two of the richest cities in the world, tens of thousands of people live in cars or sleep on the streets? Broken heart homelessness in Australia is rising rapidly, especially after COVID-19 and the recent economic downturn. Broken heart, it's not just the unemployed. Even full-time workers are being forced out of their homes because they simply can't afford rent. Broken heart, many families are crammed into tiny, temporary apartments or constantly moving between public housing projects, a reality that completely contradicts the glamorous image of a prosperous Australia. Australia, paradise for whom? So, after everything we've uncovered, is Australia truly the land of opportunity? Small blue diamond on one hand, it's still a country with a strong economy, job opportunities, and high living standards for those with good incomes. Small blue diamond, but on the other hand, the soaring cost of living, growing wealth gap, and flaws in the social welfare system are pushing hundreds of thousands into financial hardship. Backhand index pointing right. If you're considering studying, immigrating, or working in Australia, make sure to carefully evaluate the cost of living, job market, and real-life conditions instead of just believing the glamorous images you see online. Pushpin, what are your thoughts on Australia after what we've explored today? Drop your opinions in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to join us on more eye-opening journeys. Did you know that in a wealthy country like Australia, tens of thousands of people sleep in their cars or on the streets every night? A nation often seen as prosperous, yet home to makeshift camps and parking lots and under bridges. If you've watched the previous parts, we've uncovered the economic inequality and housing crisis plaguing the country. But there's an even harsher reality: the struggle of the working homeless and other pressing social issues. When hard work still can't afford you a home. Think homelessness only affects the unemployed or drug addicts. Think again. A new group is emerging in Australia: the working homeless, people who have stable jobs but still can't afford a home. Many juggle 2 or 3 jobs, yet barely make enough to survive. So how do they live? Automobile, many sleep in their cars or trailers, parking in public lots to avoid detection. Camping makeshift tent cities are popping up, built from recycled materials, where families struggle to shield themselves from freezing winters and scorching summers. Broken Heart social support is overwhelmed, shelters are overcrowded, and charities can't help everyone. Even worse, homeless people face discrimination and violence on a regular basis. Can you imagine? In a country that is supposed to be wealthy and developed, thousands of citizens are fighting just to have a place to sleep. Clinking beer mugs, alcohol addiction, Australia's other dark side. If you thought homelessness was Australia's biggest issue, hold on. Alcohol is another major crisis. Did you know that Australia is among the top alcohol-consuming nations in the world? In some places, alcohol was once used as a form of currency. Since colonial times, drinking has been deeply embedded in Australian culture. But this isn't just about grabbing a pint after work. It's a nationwide social problem. Woozy face alcohol-fueled violence, street fights, and serious health issues are rampant. Prohibited in northern regions like Darwin, you'll see no alcohol signs in public spaces as police try to control alcohol-related conflicts, especially in indigenous communities, where alcohol addiction rates are alarmingly high. Broken heart for many indigenous Australians, alcohol abuse is more than just an addiction. It's the result of historical trauma and social neglect. This seems completely at odds with the image of a carefree, laid-back Australia, doesn't it? Pick a hidden treasure, the underground town of Australia. Now, let's move on to one of the most bizarre places in Australia, where people don't live in houses, but underground. Desert. Welcome to Kubur, the opal capital of the world. Thermometer with desert temperatures reaching over 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Locals found a creative way to survive by building homes underground. These dugout homes not only keep residents cool, but also protect them from the region's intense dust storms. Metro, and it's not just homes. Kubur has underground hotels, restaurants, bars, and even a church. You might wonder, why would anyone want to live this way? The answer is simple: opal. Gemstone. Australia produces over 90% of the world's opals, and Kubur is its mining capital. Many hopeful miners come here dreaming of striking it rich, but not everyone finds fortune in these shimmering gemstones. For many residents, living underground is not just a choice, but a necessity in one of the most extreme environments on Earth. Australia, a dream or an illusion? We've journeyed from Sydney's homeless camps to Melbourne's bustling pubs, and all the way to an underground town in the outback. So what's the real story of Australia? Glowing star, yes. It's a developed country with a strong economy and great job opportunities. Warning, but it's also a place where the rich-poor gap is widening. Housing is a nightmare. Alcohol is a serious issue, and many people are struggling just to get by. Backhand index pointing right. If you're considering studying, working, or moving to Australia, do your research. Don't just believe the glamorous images on social media. Speech balloon, what do you think about all this? Is Australia still the land of opportunity in your eyes? Drop a comment below. Pushpin, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more eye-opening insights into the world. If you've watched the previous parts, you already know about the housing crisis, homelessness, and the darker sides of Australian society. But today we're diving even deeper into the hidden mysteries of this country, literally. Imagine yourself lost in a scorching desert, where temperatures soar up to 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit. The sun blazes down, the wind carries swirling dust, and there's not a single tree in sight. Could you survive in such extreme conditions? The answer is yes, but not above ground, under it. Sunrise over mountains. Kubur, the underground city like no other. Deep in the outback of South Australia lies Kubur, the largest underground town in the world. Gemstone. Why live underground? After World War I, many returning veterans, skilled in mining, arrived at Kubur Hill and discovered a hidden treasure, opal, a rare and shimmering gemstone. But the harsh climate made it nearly impossible to survive on the surface. So, they used their mining expertise to carve underground homes that protected them from the unforgiving desert heat. These aren't just simple holes in the ground. Each home is at least 4 meters deep to prevent collapse. No air conditioning needed. The underground temperature stays cool in summer and warm in winter. The town runs on solar and wind energy, generating enough electricity for all residents. And what about those living on the surface? They have to spend hundreds of dollars a month on air conditioning, a luxury the underground residents don't even need. But Kuber isn't just about homes. It has hotels, restaurants, bars, and even churches, all underground. Would you want to experience life here? Or do you still prefer the sunny beaches of Sydney? Syringe, the dark side of Australia, racism, and the forgotten indigenous people. Australia isn't just about quirky architecture. It has a painful history too. Imagine this. You've lived on your land for over 60,000 years, yet you're treated like a foreigner in your own home. Globe showing Europe, Africa, who are the indigenous Australians? They are the world's oldest living culture, with deep spiritual traditions, unique rituals, and their own social structures. But when the British arrived, their heritage was forcefully erased. Worried faced the brutal policies they endured. The stolen generation. Aboriginal children were forcibly taken from their families in an attempt to erase their culture. Systematic exclusion, lack of access to education, jobs, and healthcare pushed them to the margins of society. Mass incarceration. Indigenous youth are imprisoned at far higher rates than white Australians. Performing arts. Has anything changed? In 2023, Australia held a referendum to recognize Indigenous rights in the Constitution and establish an Indigenous advisory body. And the result? The majority of Australians voted against it. A country that prides itself on being modern and multicultural denied its own First Nations people official recognition. A shocking contradiction. What do you think? Is this a fair society? Indonesia, Australia's immigration policy. Paradise or ocean prison? Australia loves to promote itself as a welcoming, diverse nation. But is it really? Police car light if you arrive by plane with the right visa? Welcome. Water wave if you're a refugee, fleeing war, arriving by boat? You're going to detention. Australia has one of the strictest immigration policies in the world. Anyone illegally entering by boat will never be allowed to settle in Australia. Instead of providing help, the government sends them to remote detention centers like Nauru Island, known as the offshore prison. Globe showing Europe, Africa life on Nauru Island. No medical care, terrible living conditions. Psychological and physical abuse reported by human rights groups. Children trapped in uncertainty with no clear future. Is this how a civilized and humane nation treats people searching for hope? Australia. Paradise or a perfect lie? From the underground homes of Kuber to the injustice faced by Indigenous people and harsh immigration policies, Australia is more than just beautiful beaches and a dream lifestyle. Lightbulb thinking about studying, working, or moving here? Do your research. The reality is more than just the Instagram-worthy pictures. Did any of these facts surprise you? Leave a comment and share your thoughts. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep uncovering the truths that no one else dares to tell. Glowing star.